Hello everybody, welcome back. My name's Grandmaster Daniel Gormally. Another update from the Guernsey Chess Festival. I've had 3 games since the last update. Sorry, 2 games, I think. Or 3 games, I can't. Yeah, I've played round 2, round 3, and round 4. This is a photograph I took after round 4. That was quick draw against Keith Arkle. Very difficult play against your friends. But the weather was pretty miserable yesterday. That was a photograph from the beach in St. Peter Port in Guernsey. Not a very nice picture. Nobody was on the beach. I was the only one on the beach. Weather was pretty grim yesterday. Storm Babette, and then I had some games I wanted to show. This is a game against K.H. Kraft, Karl Heinz Kraft, a doctor, 77 years of age. He played his move knight h6. Now, there is a variation in which goes knight h5. I've had this before as white, actually. I think they often play this online. I had a game like this online, and you go queen e2. And you're threatening knight f6. So bishop f8 is not good. I think you have to take. Um, and then after this, the idea is if they take back, you take, and then you win the piece back, and you end up being a pawn up. But they have this move bishop g4, which is kind of annoying. And variations like this are possible. Queen d6. White is better, but I thought, yeah, according to my analysis, white is better in this endgame. However, when I prepared for my opponent, I thought, well, he's 77 years of age. No disrespect to him, but I got a better chance of beating him in the middle game, right? So I went c3. They're just keeping all the pieces on. Ironically, we ended up in dead equal endgame, or fairly close to equal endgame. So I probably should have played that other variation. He actually played all the right moves. He played knight bc6. This is all correct. Bishop e2. He played bishop e6. Yeah, the Queen C1 probably wasn't the best, but it was quite hard to find a useful plan. It seemed like black quite a good position. Another thing I thought he could do here actually was just go knight f7 was kind of reasonable as well, just to stop his plan, because I've only really got one plan, which is to go bishop h6. Ah, yeah, round about here actually should have gone f4, so I misjudged this. I saw moves like this, but I thought, well, he just goes here. What do I have? I've got nothing at all. He's threatening maybe b6, kick the bishop away. Knight can come back to d6 if I go b3, for example. Knight will go back to d6, cover f5. But in fact, f5, the computer finds this amazing variation, f5. A very interesting play. If you take with a pawn, then knight h5. But bishop f5, hard to judge, right? Because it looks like black has a good game. I'm still not sure, what the evaluation would be. The computer thinks that white has quite reasonable compensation. Very interesting idea. I didn't really consider this very deeply in the game. When queen c1, idea was to exchange dark square bishops and make his king slightly weaker, but didn't seem to work out very well in the game. He defended extremely well for most of the game. Um, yeah, so he went queen b6. I should get. How do I get rid? I'll have to get rid of the sounds on. It's kind of an irritating where I've got the sounds on. Sorry about that. Rook ae8. That was also a decent-ish move. h4, yeah, very critical moment. When I went h4. I thought, well, I did just go h5. If it goes g5, I might even just go h6, right? And then knight h6 is going to be a queen g5. So I was feeling reasonably optimistic around about this point. But although I realised by this point he was defending fairly well the whole game. And again, he played quite a reasonable, I think, defensive move from a practical perspective, which is put the knight on d6. Yeah, this is where I misjudged it, and I saw that after h5 knight here, and I did eventually see in my calculations move rook d3. And I thought actually this looked quite promising, but the more I looked at this, I thought, well, this doesn't look that great. Yeah, I mean, I've got an attack, but he's defending against it. But actually, after something like bishop f3, white is better because of The black has just got a slightly weaker king, really. So this is what I should have gone for. When bishop d3 was a bit of a speculative move. It wasn't a very good move. And he went here. And then he went bishop f5. Yeah, and again, a misjudgment by me. I saw this variation, and I kind of stopped. I went queen e5, right? I saw this in my calculations. I thought if queen b2, I've got queen d5. If knight h4, I've got queen d5. I've got a good position. His king's open. It can't be good. But the problem, what put me off was this variation, queen d6, right? And I thought queen d6, very solid move. This guy's very solid, right? Rook e1, Bobby Fischer type endgame white is better. So should have done this actually. This is what Bobby Fischer would have gone for. If you take and take on h4, you take on d5, and what's better? A little bit like this Fischer Taimanov endgame. Although I feel like black has a good chance of defending that. So obviously I'm still in the mode of, right, let's keep the queens on. Actually, another variation you could have certainly considered was this. I miscalculated this because initially I was intending h5. But when I was away from the board, I started to think about this position in my head. And I suddenly realised, oh, hang on, what if he goes rook e8? You know, this is what I miscalculated. I can't move the queen to a decent square, right? I don't want to short queens here because I'm already a pawn down. That would be a disaster, right? I might end up losing the game, certainly probably would. So you don't have to do this, which is not very clear at all. I think you can go. I think he has got good continuations here. It's a very messy position, to be honest. There's moves like, yeah, queen a2 is possible, for example. So I get some reasonable fighting chances after h5. I was remembering all these Garry Kasparov attacks from the 1990s where he sort of gave up a lot of pawns on the queen side and then ended up crashing through on the king side with some brilliant pyrotechnics. So that's kind of what I was banking on, but yeah, I wasn't convinced. So he went bishop f5, which is a fairly solid move. And I should have taken with a knight. I didn't. I went queen d2. And again, I thought he could just take, actually. Take. And then go queen b2. And that just allow me to take on d5. So what? Then I've got weaknesses on c3 and a2. He didn't do that. He went c6. Yeah, probably again I could maybe consider taking on f5. But yeah, suddenly I realised here I've got really nothing. Yeah, I mean I can play moves like rook e1, but they're not convincing. So I took here and I went g4, which is probably not a good idea. Although the computer doesn't hate what I did, like f4, it just thinks this is all about equal. But I suddenly realised, oh, hang on a minute, like my king is starting to be exposed. If he plays a mid like rook e6 to e4, if he gets the rook to e4, my king, I've got no attack. My king is kind of exposed. He went queen e7, same idea, not a bad move. Rook f3. I actually expect him to go queen e4 here. That's what I was expecting. Because if I take, then where do I put the rook, right? And immediately he's getting the queens off. I think he'd probably delay the queen exchange to where I had my pawns in a more advanced position. Therefore, I was better. The rook e6 is fine. I mean, I have to find c4, otherwise he goes rook e4, and I'm probably in a bit of trouble. Also, ideas are going queen h4, right? Queen h4 immediately runs into rook g3, so it doesn't really gain him much. He can't go rook e1, or away he can, but then queen g6 happens. So I'm not sure about that. So I went c4. And yeah, so here I calculated king f1. This is what I wanted to play with the idea, well, queen e4 blunders to queen e2, which is very easy to overlook. Suddenly you are threatening queen e2 now. So he would have gone rook e4. That's the problem. And now I wanted to go queen c3 and then switch the rook with the attack, rook h3. But with the king now on f1, that will fail to rook takes f4. So I went king g3. And this is, yeah, where he said after he made a mistake, probably should keep the queens on, which I don't necessarily agree with. I think what he did was just a draw, right? I mean, I felt like the game was going to end a draw, and I was getting very frustrated. I thought this guy's like 1900. But it just shows so many people can play chess well because this guy's only 900, but he played much higher level than that in the game. I went King F3, went back, went Rook D7, so I fiddled around here. Thought about Rook D2 here, but I didn't really see the point of it. And sometimes you go Rook D2, so sometimes you can activate the King to G4, but because you're covering against this Rook E2 threat, I decided to play B4. This is why I thought you should go Rook C7 and then just play for C5 as quickly as possible. Even if that lets my king in, or even something like this. It should be okay for black. Maybe even check now, actually, because if I go to D4, has he got Rook E2? Well, I suppose Rook D7 takes B7 might be tricky. It's tougher than you think, this position. It looks like a very easy draw, but another move was B6, but then I go here. This is what I calculated in the game. It's still hard to believe that black is in trouble here. I mean, maybe we could just go check, right? If I go here now, he's got Rook here, right? Still tricky. If he hits F4, if I go Rook D7, he goes, say, King E8, Rook A7, Rook F4, King C6, Rook B4. It's like a draw, right? Oh, no, I got Rook G7 at the end, but it should be a draw, yeah. Or Rook D7, also King F8 is possible. So something like this is a draw. And if I go King here, maybe you can play King E6 now, like in the game, or maybe just come back, right, and just say, what are you doing, sort of thing, when you're ready to play C5. It should be a draw, basically. But he went King E6 is a really bad move because suddenly then the rook gets active. And I think maybe what he overlooked here was... no, I went Rook F8, that's the point here, because if I go Rook G8, he goes King back, right? So when Rook F8 was cutting off the King. I think what he overlooked was maybe after Rook F7, I go Rook G8. And now the only way to defend the pawn is go here, but then he walks into mating at Rook E8, very nice. This is actually why it's good to leave the King on F3 for the time being, because obviously he then gets lured into this idea, right? So now, big problems. Rook F8, and I think he was already in trouble. He went King D6 as some sort of mistake. And now I get the 7th rank. I'm just in time. If he had a pawn on B6 here, it'd be fine. He could just go A6. But he doesn't. But also now there's ideas of King G4 F5. But no, King G4 F5 always run into Rook E4. So the only way to win or make progress is to get this rook. It's strong. Because now win a pawn by force. And then the game finished like this. And I went Rook B8 and yeah, the problem is that he can't. He'd like to go Rook G2 here, but the pawn is in the way. He can't go Rook G2 and B2. So when he had this position, if he goes Rook G2, I can win in lots of ways. But I think I just go check and queen the pawn, right? Because the rook can always come back and stop the pawn later. So he goes B2. Went here to check. There's several ways to win. The only way to not win, I think, or not easily win, is King F5 because then he goes Rook B4. And when I take, he's going to queen with check. I'd have to win a queen and pawn endgame, which is not 100% clear. But any other king move wins because eventually I went there. King D3 is also winning because he resigned. Because if he goes here, I'll now take queen. And when he queens, I check. So that was a very tough game. And in round 3, I played Hertog as a younger guy. Just flip the board. And yeah, so this position, the main move is B3. And then black plays either D5 or B5. I think Michael Adams played D5 against me in a game in Cambridge. And it's okay for black. But B3 kind of cuts the queen off from attacking on the queen side, right? Queen C2, Queen A4 is also a move. Queen C2, or Knight BD2 is also a move. But Queen C2 is standard. Um, Yeah, I thought actually here, I thought maybe you might consider this because I can't take the pawn because of Queen E4 check. So this Hertog is 14 years of old, so gone from playing a 77-year-old to playing a 14-year-old. It's typical, and obviously he's underrated. He's 1626, but he's better than 1626. You just beat Daniel Rosen, who's like a sort of 2000 player who's been like 210 ECF in the past, BCF grades. I lost to Daniel Rosen when I was about 17 or something like that, 17, 18. He crushed me in a London League match. I can't remember. I was a teenager at the time, I think. I lost in about 17 moves in a E4, in a Grand Prix attack, basically. E4, C5, F4, D5, knight C3, something like that. D takes E4, knight takes E4, some variation like that. And I lost horribly in about 17 moves. So Hertog is quite good. He's better than his rating. But D5 was a reasonable alternative. He went here, which is probably okay. He went Queen A4. Yeah, I didn't think Queen A4 was the best, but it's probably okay. Yeah, so here I thought Bishop D2 was slightly inaccurate because it's quite transparent that he's threatening B4. Didn't really like Bishop D2. I thought he'd just go here, actually. This looked like a much more normal move. Now, he was concerned about D5, understandably, so I did consider D5 in my calculations. But after this, the point is that if you take on D5, ED5, a bishop would be hitting E2, which is not so easy to defend against. If you go rook E1, there might be ideas like rook E8. Then you might have to play a passive move like E3, don't we want to do? Queen go back to C2. But bishop D2 was a good move. After you take with the bishop. We actually analysed something like this after the game. The computer says black shouldn't play like this. It's actually too dangerous because of the queen on C8. Sort of these pieces piled up on the C file. Once he gets a rook to C1, it's starting to look quite shaky for black. Although in a practical game, anything's possible. It's a game against humans. You're not playing against a machine. But I'm not sure I would have grabbed a pawn like this. I think the best move is just to wait and just play something like H6. Although then he can activate, and I think he's got quite a good game. Don't know what the computer says here. Yeah, so how does black handle the position? It says something like bishop b7, rook a d1, rook d8. And it's quite unclear. Bishop can drop back to f8. Knight sometimes goes back to e7. You want to get d5 in, but without maybe having to take back with a pawn. Yeah, so I think something like that would have been much more normal. But he went bishop d2 in the game, which I didn't think was a great move. Now I got knight a5. I was very happy at this point. I thought if he goes b3, and he quite rightly understood that b3 was not ideal, because suddenly the queen is trapped by its own pawn. And there's variations where I can go bishop b7, maybe threat bishop c6. So he went knight. I actually thought he'd go knight e5 here. I thought that was the best move. He went knight e4, fair enough. Went here. I was eyeing up ideas of taking on c4 here as well. Maybe giving up the exchange or something, but it's interesting. I could do that, but I felt like it wasn't necessary. I went here. He took on b7, and then I took with the queen. Yeah, knight b5. I considered lots of moves here. I considered rook to c8. I thought knight b5 was a very good move, actually. So eventually I went a6. I wasn't sure what to play, and he went knight a3, and I considered taking on a3 there because I think he has to take back the pawn. Because he takes back the queen, it allows knight c4. He has to take back the pawn. He was already starting to get quite short of time at this point. I think he was a little bit nervous, understandably so. He's playing a GM. Might be one of his first games against a GM. I played him in the Blitz as well. But obviously, FIDE Classical is a different ball game, right? Um, yeah, here I went Queen E4. I was quite happy. So my play so far has been really, really good. I think I've played up to this point pretty much every move was top move of the engine. This is where it starts to go a little bit wrong. So he took on A5. I did consider just taking back. That was also another option, but I took on D4. This is probably the best move. I thought if he goes here, I'll go B5. A little bit awkward for the queen. He can't take because he drops the bishop. So I was very happy. He went here. I went Queen E4. And yeah, I was very happy. I thought if he takes on F6 to take back the bishop, and then B2's weak. Also E2's hanging. So he went Queen D1, which is a very good defensive move, I thought. And this is where I went like, horribly wrong. I should just play something like Rook C8. But I thought, oh, his idea is to go Queen D3, and I misjudged his position. I thought Queen D3. He's making progress. Um, but oh yeah, he also showed me some variation after the game involving this, and yeah, it's absolutely right. I mean, I think he went deeper than this in his analysis. So he could obviously calculate pretty well. He's obviously quite a promising player. 1600 is not reflective of his ability at all, like you get with many juniors now. And they're causing carnage down the rating list, which is bringing everybody. I know we've gone into all this before about this deflation. But you get these underrated juniors like Mr. Hertog, who's causing carnage lower down the rating list, chopping up 2000s, 2100s, and so on. And obviously that's dragging them down, which means that, you're playing 2000s, 2100s who probably aren't 2000s, 2100s in old money. But yeah. But yeah, so basically that was also another possibility. But I was happy. I felt like I should keep the dark square bishop. So I mean, like Rook D8 considered, but Rook C8 I think was maybe best. And if he goes here, then you just go D5, and this is the position I misjudged. Because if he takes here, this is really like bad. I think something like this is just really bad for him. Structurally, he's got a horrible position. I'm threatening to win material. Yeah, but obviously, when he's getting short of time, you're thinking, well, I don't really want to go for an endgame, right? And something like this is also quite bad, I think, because B2 is very weak. Like Rook B1. What's this? Yeah, Bishop E7, and Black is doing really well. So I should have gone Rook C8. I didn't. I played like casually here. I went Queen C6. I was kind of playing on his time. That's quite a bad move, actually, Queen C6. So my idea was I'll bring the knight into E4. It's kind of an understandable idea in a way. I bring the knight into E4, keep the tension, don't allow the queens to be exchanged. He's getting short time. So in that sense, it wasn't, an impractical move. It just wasn't the best. And he defended it quite well. He surprised me. He went back to B3. I was really surprised by that move. It's a very strong move. Um, and I went into E4, and then he went Bishop B4, which again I thought was a decent move. I think he should try to exchange pieces. It's a way to make progress. So bring the rook to D1. The knight is bad, but the less pieces that are on the board, in a way, it just reduces my advantage because I've got an advantage in space, probably. But once he starts making exchanges, that knight is doing a reasonable job of defending C4, can relocate via C2. It's not that bad. So I went Bishop C5 fairly quickly. I was still trying to play on his time a little bit. And this is where he should just take and then play something like Queen F3. And, maybe the computer says that white's slightly worse, but I feel like it's very unclear position. Like, it's not clear to me, what black should play here. Do I go D5? Do I go F5? I mean, what does computer say? Like here, something like, yeah, D5 apparently is good. And then you just play with the hanging pawns. You don't really want to go F5. Well, you can. But eventually you go D5. That's interesting. Yeah, because I was looking at like F5. It's tempting to go F5, Rook F6. But there's no real attack on the king side. If you go D5, I'm a bit better. But in the game he blundered. He had no time. And he went E3, which is a really bad blunder because I wanted to go Knight G5 anyway. And this has just made my job that bit easier. So I went Knight G5, resigned the game. I thought he would go here, but this apparently is very bad. Looks very bad, certainly. I would have expected to win the game by this point. Like, So that was really the round two and round three games. But now, yeah, I'm in serious territory now. I drew with Keith in round four with White. Kind of like a rest day. Give yourself a rest. Not a bad idea. Keith is hard to beat. I very rarely beat him. He very rarely beats me. We generally have draws. Uh, but I think at some point you want to try and start to play, right? Because everybody's tough. I mean, the problem is now I play Harry, who's I've got a bad score against. I wouldn't say a bad record because he's just a good player, Harry, but um, my score against him is not good. I got like half out of four against him. So that's going to be a tough game. If I can survive that, then I'm in reasonable shape to get a good score in the tournament. Because there's only two rounds left after that. Most of the rest of the players are much lower rated. I think there's a big gap, and you're probably looking at 2,100, 2,000 players at best. So I think the round six and seven should be relatively benign, but it's really the black against Harry Grieve is going to be the very tough one today. So if I can survive that, I'm in good shape. But it'll be interesting to see. I'll probably put a video up about that game, win, lose or draw. Anyway, so yeah, so that was the video. That was the round, the latest current update in the Guernsey chess, and that's the picture from Guernsey Beach. Anyway, thanks for watching the video. Please like and subscribe and look out for more content.